Hello again, everyone, and I'm going to publish my top 25 list, and this goes on top of Amy Nolte's 25 list that you may be familiar with. And so I put the list down there in the description, and I'm going to take one of the songs off the list, which is Have You Met Miss Jones? And I'm going to go through it in a very basic way first with just root position chords, and then we're going to get more advanced. I'll go through it a few times. I'm going to start using inversions, then I'm going to use some open voicings, then I'm going to use some rootless voicings, then I'm going to talk a little bit about the scales you can use to improvise with. I might put a little bass line in there with the left hand. And I will link to my older videos that discuss these concepts in more detail. So there'll be links up there. I think you can see up in the corner of the video the little eye. Sometimes a little eye will pop up there, and it'll tell you, give you a link to some of the other videos that cover rootless voicings or open voicings, things like that. So anyway, it's a great song, Have You Met Miss Jones? And I'm going to just start by playing the melody. Sometimes you have to take the melody up an octave if you're just playing these root position chords with the left hand. So I'll do that. Now another thing you can do is play the melody down and just kind of play around your chord here. So like... So not everything was a root position chord. C7th, I inverted because it's closer. It's like voice leading. Suppose you had four voices: Bob, Carol, Ted, and Alice. No, it'd be Bob, Carol, Ted, and Alice. Well, Bob's singing here. He doesn't want to have to jump all the way down to there for C7th. So he could just stay on his note because that note's in a C7th chord. And meanwhile, Ted, he moves down to C, and Alice moves down from F to E, and Carol stays the same too on B flat. So that's called voice leading. And of course, I'm just being silly with Bob, Carol, Ted, and Alice, but you know, it sounds better to keep your chords moving smoothly from one to the next. So I'm going to invert C, and then A minor I'll play in root position. D minor, I'm going to invert that one too. It could be like this, but since I already have those two notes in my A minor, I'll just move these two down to D and F, you see. Okay, then G minor and C, back to F major to do the second time through on the A section. Now that's called a 2-5-1 there at the end, because you're doing G minor, C, and F. That's 2, 5, and 1 in the key of F. Okay. The bridge is what's really the cool part about this song. It goes up to the 4 chord, starts on B flat. Well, you get there with the 2-5. You know, you go C minor to F to B flat. Now, that's not a 2-5 in F. You know, in the key of F, that's like the 5 chord but made into a minor chord. But it's a temporary 2-5-1, 2-5-1 to B flat. So I'm going to invert my F 7th and then play B flat major 7th. And then I've got another 2-5-1, A flat, D flat, and G flat. Then another one, E, A, and D. And then back to my first one there, A flat, D flat, and G flat. And then you get G minor, C, and F, which takes you to the last A section, which is just like the first A section, basically. Melody's a little bit different, but the chords are the same. All right, so, you know, why did I pick those chords to invert? Well, they were just convenient, but let me show you. If I'm doing C minor, I could, instead of inverting the F 7th to get to the B flat, I could start with C minor as an inversion, then play F 7th, and then B flat. Okay? Now, I could kind of do the same thing on the next one. That's A flat minor, 7th, D flat 7th, and G flat major 7th. Then, I don't want to go down too much farther to do E minor 7th, so I'm going to come up here and do it in root position. And And then instead of jumping all the way here for A flat, I'll do my inversion on A flat and end up on G flat. But to get back to F, I want it to be strong, and this is the strongest, because when you end on the 1 chord, you probably want that one to be in root position, especially if it's an important chord like the first chord of the A section there. Okay, let's see, what else can we do with this song? Well, we could put a bass line to it. So I think, though, before I do that, I'll do rootless voicings, because when I'm playing a bass line, since the bass will always be hitting the root at the beginning of the measure, I'd like to have a rootless voicing for my right hand to play. Later on, I'll play those same voicings with my left hand and improvise over it. So, rootless voicings. So if the bass is playing F, I can then with my other hand play A, C, E. That gives me my chord, and add a 9th. Okay. Now for F sharp, this is not going to be a rootless voicing, but you can take a diminished chord and move any note up a whole step. So I'm going to do that. It's called a whole tone extension. For G minor, I can do it this way. I mean, I think I will do it this way, actually. So you just kind of take the root, move up a minor third to the third, and then build a major 7th chord, essentially, but it's the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, and the 9th. G minor 9th. Looks like a B flat major 7th, but it is a G minor 9th. Then my C7th, I'm going to use what I call a box voicing, and I'm going to link back to videos about this. These are rootless voicings. And the reason this is called a box voicing is because we made a kind of a graph out of it, a table, and it looked like a box. So, and the concept being that this chord can be used a variety of ways. You can call it C7th, because it really is a C7th with a 7th and a 3rd. It's also got the 9th and the 13th. But it can be also called an F sharp altered chord, or an E minor 7 flat 5, or a G minor. It can function as about 6 different chords. So we call it a box voicing because we analyzed it that way. Okay, then I'm going to get to A minor. Now this one is an interesting chord because I could, go up here and play the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, and the 9th. But we are in the key of F. And in the key of F, you do not have a B, you have a B flat. So if I play an A minor and put the 9th on that, I'm getting outside of the key a little bit. Now that's okay if you're playing, it's got a more modern flair to it, but if you want to stick pretty close to home and do what's generally expected on this song, it's a good idea not to add that 9th, okay, because it's outside of the key. So I'm just going to play A minor as a root position voicing, or I could use an inversion. And then for D minor, now D minor 9th is going to work fine, because all those notes, look, it looks like an F major 7th, so all those notes are in the scale of F. So from A minor to D minor, and then here's a G minor. Before I did it this way, I'm going to do it this way this time. It's a rootless voicing, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, and then C7th is going to be like this. And that's another box. That's box 2. This is the way I played C7 the first time. That's box 1. And if you take a inversion of that and move it down here, you've got C7th. And that's with a 9th and a 13th. So those are my rootless voicings. In the B section, I'm going to do a similar kind of thing. B flat major. I'll do A flat minor. Box voicing. 6/9 chord. Okay. So a couple of different ways to do rootless voicings there. Then let's talk about the bass line now. So we've got F major 7th. The first thing I'm going to do is play F, because every time the chord changes, and bass players should take heed of this also, almost always you want to play the root first. That way there's, everybody's clear about what the chord is, and there won't be any mishaps. You can get adventurous from time to time, but it's best to, if you want to stay close to home, you want to play the root first. Then you could outline the chord. Next next chord is F sharp, and notice I'm just moving a half step to get there, so that's a pretty smooth way of doing it. I'll outline this chord, the F sharp diminished, and that smoothly gets me into G minor. I should play rootless voicing up here though. Now, I need 4 notes because we're doing walking bass, 4 notes to the bar, and I'm trying to get to C so I can go up the scale, but I'll need to put a passing tone in as my 4th note so I can end on C on the first beat of the next measure. And then I could keep going up, but I'm going to turn around and come back down and end on A minor. And then I'm going to go up again. No, I'll outline this chord. And I could go back to A, but since I'm going to D next, I'll put a little passing tone in. So, and then I get to D minor. There I just went root, 5th, root, and then I can go a tritone away. It's not really, you know, you wouldn't call this a tritone substitution. It's just a passing tone getting to G minor. And then I'm going to, I could walk down to get to C, or I could come up and put the passing tone in. And then I'm back to the top. So here's the A section with a walking bass line, rootless voicings in the right hand. Bridge. Okay, now we can take the same rootless voicings and we can improvise with them. But before we do that, let's just stick with our basic voicings again and see what some simple scales might be to just get us through this tune. Nothing too sophisticated here, but it should still sound acceptable, decent. So we're going to talk about the blues scales a little bit. We're in the key of F. Now, I call that the minor blues scale, but it worked, you know, it's just a blues scale is kind of major and minor at the same time. So it works over major chords and minor chords. All right. Now, there's another blues scale that is a little bit more major. It has a minor third, but it also has the major third. Right? And it's actually derived from the D minor blues scale. Now, that's the relative minor of F major. If you go down to D minor, right? But then this scale will transform itself into an F scale. So you have D minor, but if you use it, starting on F, like that, it sounds like an F major scale. So I've got 2 kinds of blues scales here. What I'm going to call the F minor blues scale, right? Because it doesn't have a major third, and the F major blues scale, which does have a major third. It also has the minor third, but the major third is the one that kind of comes out at you. All right, and you can come down on these scales too, especially the minor one. On the major one, you've got to use little pieces of it, I think. Because if you come straight down, well, it works, you know. You've got to learn to use it. All right, so let's try this out and see how far we get. So we're going to start with that major one here. Came down with the minor one. I think I'll stick to the major one for G minor. And then I might switch again. I'll stick with the major for A minor here. And of course, the D minor, you know, I can say it's a D minor blues scale or the F major blues scale. It's the same thing. And then for the turnaround, I'll just use regular old blues scale. That's the minor one. All right, so let's try this the whole A section, see if this works. All works pretty well. I think I might have done something a little fancy there at the end. Let me do a one more time. So I'm kind of mixing the two scales together there. So let's see if that'll get us through the bridge as well. So it starts off on B flat, and I'll play a G minor blues scale. Why? Because it's the same thing as the B flat major blues scale. Right? Starting on the root, second, flat 3, 3, 5, and 6. And then I'm going to get the A flat. And since this is a 2-5-1, in G flat, I'm going to play the G flat major blues scale. See how that works. So works pretty well. Do the same thing for the 2-5-1 in D. See? All right, the major blues scale. And then we're back to A flat, D flat, and G flat again. So that's a 2-5-1 in G flat. I'll use the G flat blues scale. Yeah, and boy, that's one I don't really have under my fingers. Let's see what we could do with it. I kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, like it putting the thumb on the black note and everything. That'll work pretty well. And then we've got to do one in F. That'll just be down a half step. And let's see if the bridge works like that. So coming out of the A section, have you met Miss Jones? Second ending. All right, B flat. Yes, that'll carry you through pretty well. Now, I gotta say that feels kind of strange to me because I'm just used to playing rootless voicings down here and using a little bit more sophisticated scales. And those scales would be F major 7th. I'm back to the A section now. F major 7th. Okay, that's the Ionian mode. It's really just the major scale, but we call it Ionian mode so people that don't know jazz think we're smarter than we really are. So F major scale, Ionian. And you can add a passing tone. That's called the bebop scale. Right here. You could add it other places too. Turns it into an 8-note scale, and so rhythmically it kind of works out differently, and it sounds pretty cool. You can do it coming down. No. Okay, and then F sharp diminished. Well, I'm going to use the diminished scale, of course. Start on F sharp, go a whole step first, then a half step, and just alternate that. Okay, I've got all kinds of videos about the diminished scale, or at least a few out there, which of course I'll link to. And you can use all the famous diminished stuff in there too. All that kind of thing. Okay, G minor. Well, that's just the 2-chord in F. I'll stay on the F major scale. You can call that Dorian mode if you like, but I'm just thinking F major. Same with C, except if you want to get more sophisticated, that's the dominant chord, and so you can use diminished, altered, Lydian dominant, whole tone scale, chromatic scale, make something up. There's lots of things you can do on a dominant chord because all those tensions are available. All right, so you can do lots of interesting things. All right, then A minor. Now I'm going to be careful. It's a minor chord. A lot of people think Dorian mode right off the bat, but Dorian mode here gives me, what the hell does it give me? It gives me, it gives me a B, which is not in the key of F. It gives me an F sharp, which is not in the key of F. So I'm going to stick to, I guess it would be called Phrygian mode, which is F major scale. All right, and then D minor. Again, I'm not going to put the B in there and make it Dorian mode. I'm going to keep it as the F major scale, and that's going to be Aeolian mode, I guess. But I've talked about this before. a lot of these modes are just simply staying in the key of the song, and so you don't really have to think in terms of modes that much. So A minor, D minor, G minor, and C. I'm just going to think F major scale for the most part. Except for the C. For the C seventh, and notice I've put a flat 9 in there instead of the root. So I can use diminished scale, or I could use a box voicing and use altered scale, or I could use another box voicing and use Lydian dominant scale. Of course, and then there's little things like called enclosures, where you just circle in around the note. To start on G, you can say I'm going to do this scale, but I'm going to get to that note by enclosing it first. And I'll use altered scale here. Okay, so I'll see if I can call out what I'm doing real quick. Ionian mode, diminished, F major, diminished, F major, F major, F major, Lydian dominant. Okay, now let's go through the bridge. I'll use on every dominant chord I'll use diminished scale. Let's see how that works. I had to think about it too much and kind of stumbled around. I'll use altered this time on every dominant chord. Okay, and of course, the dominant chord's only got 2 beats there, so you don't have much time to use it. However, you could get rid of the 2 that comes before it, like play B flat major, and then just go right to the D flat. Right, leave out the E minor and go right to the A seventh. Leave out the A flat minor and go right to the D flat. Right? By simplifying the chord progression, sometimes you can get a more complex line going, because you don't have to think about changing chords so much. You can think more about, your melodic structure. Oh, I'm trying to do this pretty fast. Okay, let's see. Well, here's something we did not cover, and I need to cover it. Should have covered it earlier. It's the open voicings. So, we could play it a little bit slower to work on this, and I'm going to use standard voicings. I've done a couple videos about this. These are voicings that come from Berklee College of Music. And, these are just voicings that you use in typical situations. So the first thing I see is F major 7th, and I see the 3rd is the melody note. So I have a formula I can use, 1, 5, 3, 7, 3, okay? And the formula, it doesn't matter what kind of chord it is. If it's a minor chord, you just go 1, 5, 3, 7, 3, use the flat 3 and the flat 7 because it's a minor 7th chord. It'll work for all, like, 7 or 8 or 9 different chord types, all the basic ones, major, minor, dominant, major 6, minor 7, flat 5, augmented, even diminished chords. The formulas work. Okay, next chord is F sharp diminished 7th, and let's see, it's a root. The formula is 1, 5, 7, 3, 5. Okay, look, if it was F major 7th, 1, 5, 7, 3, 5. As a diminished chord, 1, 5, 7, 3, 5. Okay. G minor, melody notes the 5th, same formula, 1, 5, 7, 3, 5. And on C, I get this note right here. Okay, well, what is that note? Well, you could say it's the 6th, but you would be wrong, because once you have a 7 in your chord, then any other note like the 2nd, 4th, or the 6th has to be called the 9th, the 11th, or the 13th. All right. Once you have the 7th there, these extensions become 9ths, 11ths, or 13ths. So there's the 13 up there. My formula, and this comes from a second set of formulas that deal with the tensions, would be this: 1, flat 7, the 9th, the 3rd, and the 13th. So here we go, A section with open voicings. A minor. Did I cover A minor? It's A minor 11th. So here's my voicing. And that's a standard voicing too, just shortened. Take this one, change it to that. And I explain how to do that in one of my other videos. And then G minor, standard voicing, and C 7th. So here we go. All right, I used a different one there instead of this one. I got a different one I like better. And that's the nice thing about these voicings is, you can use them as starting points to find your own voicings, or to find other voicings. I won't call them your own because, believe me, piano players have found these before. But as you discover them and discover how to use them, you will eventually come up with some things that you can really call original. So you can take F major and add, say, the 13 to the chord, F major 7th. All right. It looks like a 6, but because, like I say, I already have the 7th there, so I have to call it a 13. And here, I know I can raise any note a whole step in a diminished chord. It's dissonant, but it's allowable. A G minor, I could add a 9. I got a 9th, maybe I could make it a flat 9. Sounds pretty good. Add my little 9th in there real close. Nice little small dissonant voicing. Voicing. You could say it's built on fourths, but I would disagree with that because it's a G minor 7th. Right? G minor 7th, which is a chord built on thirds. Just changed it around a little bit. Then we added an 11th, right? And took out the 5th. Look at that. So you could say there's a lot of fourths in this chord. And I guess you could say it's built on fourths, but I don't know. That's where I just like to disagree with the mainstream on stuff. So I'll go through the bridge now. That has some nice open voicings here. The major chords seem like they always have a 9th on top. So I have a formula for that. 1, 5, 3, what is it? There it is, right there. Okay, that's the formula. 1, 5, 3, 7, and the 9 on top. It's very similar to the standard voicing. All right, now here's a real typical standard voicing. A flat minor. Look, C minor. C minor 7th. Root, flat 7, flat 3, 5, and the root. All right, you'll use this chord all the time. In A flat minor, it looks like this. Same formula. And then the D flat 7th, got the 5th on top. There's the formula. I could do something with it, but I won't. Same thing here. And here's again an A flat minor with the 11th on top. I have a good voicing here. Here's the standard voicing. Okay, a little bit of reharm. Let's do a little bit of reharm while we've got open voicings going. So we're going from F major, got a little passing chord of F sharp, and then to the 2 chord. There's a way to get to the 2 chord from the 1 chord, which is called the move. And the move is simply, you go 1, 4, up to the subdominant, and then you come down to the 3, and you can, technically you're going to the 6 next, but we'll do a tritone substitution there, and then you get down to the 2. So instead of just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you get to G that way. And, since it's kind of a cycle of fifths things, there's lots of tritone substitutions. Like you could do it this way. All right, that's actually cycle of fifths. You could do it this way. All right, all roads lead to G minor 7th there. All right, so that's the first, and this is not real out there reharmonization. This is like basic stuff that, if you're playing this song at a jam session or playing with other musicians maybe you've never played with before, a lot of cats or kittens, girls are included. So, girls do reharm too. So, you can use this if you hear somebody else doing it, or if you do it and you can hear people following you, then you know you're playing on people that are, maybe about at your level. If you hear somebody do a reharm you don't understand, then maybe they're a little more advanced than you are, at least on that particular song. So here we go with the move. Bum ba dum ba da. Bum ba dum bum 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 ba dum bum 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 bum. All right, now here's a real typical reharmonization. Instead of 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, right there at the first ending, that's a 2-5-1 going to F. But if you take it up a half step, like that, and put that all in one bar. So 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. Okay, I don't know what you call that, but it just happens all the time, and it's a great reharmonization. People hear it really easily too, and if in just about any song, it's pretty easy to respond to if you hear somebody doing it. And even if one person goes that way and the soloist say doesn't, it usually works out. It sounds okay. But it's nice when people can kind of connect on these kind of things. So let me use a little bit of reharmonization as I take a solo here with lots of fancy scales and stuff. All right, so I should have done the move there. So I use the A flat, D flat. I'll do one more time. Yeah, and the bridge is really so nice. The chords are nice that you probably don't really want to reharm too much there, though there are possibilities for sure. Most of the reharmonization would just come from doing nice chord voicings, like B flat major seventh, you could go like that or something. And then put the ninths in and make the dominant chords, have a lot of dissonance. Stuff like that. Okay, modern ideas for this song. Got to be honest, I don't really have any. You can always use some chordal harmony, like the thing there at the first ending. I was showing you A flat and then G to C. If you use some chordal harmony there, it can make that sound pretty modern. So this is my A flat minor seventh there as a stack of fourths, and then D, I'm going to do the same thing. Well, not the same thing, but I'm going to use a stack of fourths that's in the D seventh chord. But there's no third or seventh, so it's a bit of a stretch, but it still works. And so I'm going to use some pentatonic scales here. I'll use A flat minor pentatonic, and then the D flat pentatonic. Am I doing this right? No, A flat pentatonic is here, and D flat pentatonic. And then I'll use this chord for both my G minor and my C dominant, okay? It's kind of a suspended dominant, but it'll work. So here's my progression. All right, and here's what it sounds like in the song. Try to find a link to a video. One of my students actually brought this to my attention and could play it pretty well himself, a version where they kind of go into 2 or 3 different keys as they go through this song. It's a pretty neat version. Might be a couple days before I can find that link, but I'll get it up here eventually. Maybe you can look for it. Have You Met Miss Jones? Great tune.